Hi, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Album. Welcome to my Chaps Mini Album Tutorial Part 2. There is also a decorating process video and how I made the tunnel front video. So if you need those, there are links in the description box. But let's get started with making the elements for this mini album. Alrighty, I guess I should write inside front cover. So for inside front cover, I'm starting with something simple, just because that was part of my design, not because I want to start with something simple. But anyhow, I have a 4.5 by 7, and of course, remember, we had those pieces left over from when we cut the base pages, so I'm using that. I am going to score it at 1/2 inch and at 6.5. And I guess let me stop and mention it here. I do not write out my cutting guide anymore. I do so many projects that, and it takes time, and inevitably I will write 4.5 and then, or I'll say 4.5 and then I'll write down 4 because I forget the half, and somebody will comment and then I have to go correct it. And it's just easier if you guys take a pad, watch this through, write down the measurements, or do it with me. Grab your paper and cut it and do it with me. So anyhow, then I rotate it. The 4.5 side is at the top, and I score at 4. I might do cut a circle here, but I like to do that when I have put the paper on so I can cut them at the same time so they're in the exact same place. Now you see I'm going to miter the corners at the top, and to miter at the bottom, I just simply cut across the X created by the 2 score lines. So that is that for that. On the way to take my scoreboard and put it down below, that's where I keep it because I don't like my desk to get too crowded. I throw the little trash things out in the trash, which is right below me also. All right, we will fold and burnish on these score lines. And I bet you think we're going to put it in the book. Nope. You know why? Because we're going to put paper on this page first, then we're going to center it and put it on. But because I don't want to forget where it's going to go, and I like to use my ATG, I'll just put a little dot on all 3 of the tabs, and I just stick it here. Once I'm decorating, I'll just peel this up and put it on top, because I'll eventually cut pattern paper to fit the whole page. But for now, I'm just going to put it there so I remember where it is. So that was easy. Let's do the front of page 1. Okay, so from our leftovers from cutting the base pages, we have pieces that are 5 inches wide, and it was 8.5, so I cut off 1/2 inch. So we have 6 pieces that are 5 by 8. And then we'll cut out of a fresh piece of paper 1 piece that is 6 by 8.5. I'm going to take my scoreboard, I'll do it this way, and then I'll score first at 1/2 inch and then at 3/4. And then for this piece, I have my corner rounder, and I'm going to round the bottom 2 corners. This is going to be a flap, and I just like my flaps to be rounded so people can identify it as a flap. I'll put that aside. All right, so now we have these 6 pieces that are 5 by 8. We're just simply going to score them at 1/2 inch each with the short side at the top. Now to make it easier so I have more room to hold, I am going to just score it at 4.5 on all 6 of these pieces. Did I get them all? I feel like I'm missing one. And there it is. Okay. And then on all of these pieces, we are going to simply miter the corners. This one I have 2 pieces at a time, just because I feel confident in my mitering skills. But double check, because sometimes I found I've mitered it on the wrong side. All right, you know what? Let's use our scoreboard as a tool for placing. All right, first we'll fold and burnish on our score lines. All right, I'm going to take it and place it on my scoreboard with the flap to the right-hand side. I'll open it up a little bit, take my glue, and zigzag glue till it's down the length of our little tab. I'll take another piece, and again, to the right is our tab, and I'll place this on here, just a smidgen, again, to the right side of our score line, and it's lined up at the top, so that way we know it's a nice straight fold. And we'll do the same with this. So we'll add some glue to the tab, take our little piece, put it to the right of the score line, and burnish it. I'll go ahead and do that to the other one real quick while that one's drying. So line it up to the side and to the top, place this and make sure it's lined up at the top. And do the same with the next fold line. And there we go. You don't have to use your scoreboard if you don't want. It was here, and it makes things easier to line up. All right, scoreboard goes away. And we'll make sure our pieces are folded. But first we're going to take our 6 by 8.5 inch piece, fold and miter on our score line. Oopsie, I didn't miter, or fold and burnish, I meant. I didn't do that one too well. And then let's miter at the top. So from the score line closest to the edge to the bottom, we're just going to miter that a little bit. Okay, so on the front of page 1, we're going to take this piece, and I'm going to add glue to the tab. And that's going to go up at the top of our page. So it's pretty easy. We're going to make sure it's up at the top, it's straight, and it's lined up with the actual page, not the hinge, but to the page. And we're good. All right, then we're going to open that up and leave that opened. So now we're going to take our little, sort of like an accordion, and I'm going to add glue to the tab. Oopsie. And that's going to go on the right hand side. One will go on the right and one will go on the left. So just line it up with the page, and then the bottom, make sure it's parallel to the bottom. Make sure it's not going to get hung up on here. If you need to, pull it down a little so it doesn't get hung up on our little tab there. I'm going to open this up. I got glue on here. It'll be covered with paper, so it's okay. So it's going to actually go in, out, in. And then we'll do the same with this side. add glue to our tab. Line it up to the edge of the page. Make sure it's not going to get hung up here. I'm pulling it down a little bit, so again, a smidgen below that second score line on our top piece. And then that'll fold in, out, in. That'll come on top of that. And then this will come down here. And we will add a magnet to the bottom of this on the outside. So I'm not going to do it right now, but what I'm going to do is make a mark, a circle here, and a circle here, so I remember when I'm actually doing the page that that's what I want to do. All right, so that is the front of page 1. Okay, we're going to work on the back of page 1. For that, you'll need 3 pieces of cardstock, one that is 6 by 8.5, and 2 that are 2 by 5 7/8. Okay, so I have my scoreboard. I am going to start with the larger piece, the 6 by 8.5, and with the 8.5 side at the top, we're going to simply score at 1/2 inch. Easy schmeezy. Now these pieces that are 2 and 5 7/8, we're going to score with the short side at the top. We're going to score at 1/2 inch, at 1, and 1.5. And do that for both of these. I'm going to turn that way. 1/2, 1, 1.5. We're going to fold and burnish on all of these score lines. We don't miter this. And we'll do the same, fold and burnish on this one. And let's miter this corner real quick, or these 2 sides. And fold and burnish. And let's adhere this. I haven't decided if I'm going to round these corners, so at this point I'm not going to. I wanted to show you this. I made this in a video last year. If I remember, I'll link it, but if not, look for a glue stand holder in my channel. It's just made with chipboard and paper, and I've got a magnet on the front. That magnet is the best thing to hold your pin from your glue, and this is cut just so this will sit in it. When you've got the little pin in, it will stay in there and not fall, and you won't lose it, and the glue is to the bottom, and I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. It was just one of those quickie projects that I made, and decided I like it, and I use it all the time. So anyhow, we're going to put this on here. Make sure it's close to the left side of the page as opposed to near the spine. So I put that on, and I'll burnish here. I know that looks messy, but I'm not worrying about that right now. Alright, so I'm going to take one of these guys, and what these are for is this is going to be where we add a little pop-up thing. So it's going to sit in here. It'll look like a stair. And it's going to be just a cube. And what will happen is it'll fold flat when this is closed, but you open it and it'll sit up, and we're going to add some embellishments here just to make it dimensional. So I'm really actually going to open it up, and it's going to fold like this, but on this one piece that's closest to the right hand side, I'm going to put that I'm going to open this because I want it to go right up to the edge of that. Right up to the edge. And let's make sure that glue is distributed and it's down. Okay, so now we've got 3 score lines here, folded in the center one, just like that. So it's folded in half, and I'm going to add glue to the one piece that's closest to our flap that we just added. And then I'm going to close this and burnish. Clean that up. I saw some glue seeped out. And then, so what's going to happen is it's going to stick in the middle. Let's see, can you see it? So it's just going to look like a cube right there at the center of your angle. I don't know how to say that geometrically. I'm sure somebody can. So we've got that in, and it'll flatten. And then we're going to put the other one next to it, but I'm not going to glue it all the way because we're going to add some pattern paper to it first. So again, we've got it folded and scored, and I'm going to put glue on the piece that is closest to the right hand side. And I'm going to put that close right at the bottom of the other piece we've got on there. So it's not underneath it, but it's tucked right under the corner. And let's burnish that. Okay, and that's all I'm going to do for right now. What we're going to do when we decorate it is we're folding this. This is going to glue onto this piece, but before we do that, we're going to put embellishments. I don't know if I'm going to put a car or the whiskey bottles in there or whatever, but something that's going to go in there and it's going to stand up when you open this page. But when the page is closed, it's just going to lie flat. Then it'll open and it'll open up. But again, that's all I'm doing for right now. We will work on that a little bit more later. So that is the back of page 1. Just a quick note here to tell you I do glue those 2 cubes together, but I do it when I'm decorating. If you want, you can see it in the decorating video. All right, for the front of page 2, you'll need a piece that's 6 3/4 by 8, a piece that is 5 by 7, and 2 pieces that are 3.5 by 8. Get out our handy dandy scoreboard. The 3.5 by 8, we're going to score at 1/2 inch with the short side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. I'm leaving the 5 by 7 alone for a minute. The 6 3/4 by 8 with the 6 3/4 at the top, score at 1/2 and at 3/4. So this is going to be a gusseted page because we're going to have some innards inside the flap. Put those aside. All right, I just want to show you a trick with this. So we have this 5 by 7 piece. We're going to score it on 2 short sides and 1 long side at 1/2 inch. So the long side at the top, score at 1/2, rotate, score at 1/2, rotate, score at 1/2. Now I really don't need a piece that is 5 by 7. Whoops. I only want 1/2 of that. So we're going to cut that at 3.5. So now you have 2 pieces that are 3.5. So instead of scoring it on 2 short sides, I just made it easy. So I am obviously mitering the corners. And we'll do that to all of our pieces. I'll put those together and miter these because I can. Once you have that little score line, it sort of folds together nicely. And then here I'm doing it from that 1/2 inch tab. I'm not worrying about the 1/4 inch tab right now. All right, let's get rid of our little fire starters. And I say that because I live in my RV and we'll use those little scraps of paper to start my fires. Occasionally. You would think I do campfires all the time, but I don't. Only when I have company, really. I mean, do you sit out by your fire pit at home all the time? Usually it's not unless you... Maybe it's a pretty night. So, I mean, sometimes we will if it's a nice night. Alright, I'm burnishing and folding on all of these score lines out of all those pieces we've just cut. Alright. So, 2F. First thing I'm going to do is put this large flap on. We've got a lot of room in this book because we've got that 1/2 inch gusset, so I can use the room. So I am putting that up against the page on the left hand side, not on the hinge, just on the page. Oops. So I'll fold and burnish. So let that dry. We'll put the flaps on the outside here. And we'll add one piece to each of our 1/2 pages. So it's going to be a flap that opens up at the side, and we will have a little folder inside, and that'll help keep it from opening up. Don't need a magnet on this page. So I'll put that down and burnish it. Another secret you could do is actually put that bottom piece on here. Now, I'm not going to worry about it because we're going to cover this whole page with pattern paper. The reason I would do that is to keep the paper from getting in the way if you put something in the little side pocket. But you're not going to here. So anyhow, we're putting it on the outside. I thought about cutting this at an angle, but I just decided against it, just knowing the subjects I have as far as the material in the paper pad I'm using. Alright, so one will go on the left side and one will go on the right side. Of course, you're going to make sure it's equal to the top and the bottom. So this should just butt up against each other. It's alright if one is a little below the other one, but it really should just butt up against each other. And then what we'll do is we'll have a folder inside here, and that'll keep the page from opening. And then we'll open this, and then we have a whole new feature inside. So that is part of the front of page 2. Okay, to decorate to put the page features on the inside of the front of page 2, I have 2 pieces of cardstock that are cut. That's a little ragged, so I'll take care of that. But they're 4 by 7. So 2 that are 4 by 7 and 2 that are 5.5 by 7.5. these 5.5 by 7.5, we're going to just cut. We're going to score 1/2 inch on the short side. So the 7.5 will go to the top and just score it on one side. So these, we're going to make a pocket out of this. So we're going to score it on the 2 short sides and 1 long side. So with the 7-inch side at the top, I'll score it 1/2 inch, rotate, score it 1/2, rotate, oops, score it 1/2. With this one with the mangled bottom, that's gonna, so I'm turning it upside down. But anyhow, I'm scoring it 1/2. Oops. Rotate, score it 1/2, and score it 1/2. So let's miter, burnish, and fold all 4 of these papers. Alrighty, easy schmeezy. We're going to, so I'm going to adhere the bottom of the pockets first, and I'll show you why. So I'm putting that on. I'm going to justify it to the left, so just to make sure it's as far away from the hinge as possible. I'm going to make sure it matches up with the left-hand side of this page. And on here, whoops, on this one, we'll justify it to the right side of the page. Now we've got a little gusset in this page, so we really should be okay, but it's a good practice to get into. Okay. Now, if you have Scotch tape, you can use Scotch tape, like the 5/8 of an inch. I happen to have packing tape, and I'm going to take that and just put it right on here. Why would you do that? So when you have the pocket closed, nothing will get hung up here if for some reason your paper doesn't go to the bottom. And it may not. I may not put paper to the bottom because it's such a good size pocket. So again, I'll do that here. And then I'll go ahead and glue the other tabs to make it a pocket. And you can pinch the corners. You want to make sure there's a good opening. All right, and we'll glue this down. All right, I'm turning this to the side just so I can work it easier. So I'm taking one of these flaps, and before I put it on, I'm going to round the corners. Oops. I'll put it down. And again, justify it to the left side of the page. Oh, no, 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 don't. This is 1/2 inch smaller than the page, so you have to center it. There'll be 1/4 of an inch on each side. Glad I remembered that. Sometimes I like to do that just to have this pattern play with this pattern on the top. And two, secondary reason is because then you only use one sheet of the 8.5 by 11, but that's not the primary reason. It's mostly just so you can have the patterns play. It's fun when you coordinate patterns, and I love to do that. All right, again, we're centering it on the top with just about 1/4 of an inch on each side. And burnish there. Alrighty. Now, am I going to use magnets here or circle tabs? I don't know. Something to think about. But anyhow, there is the front of page 2. We'll also need to make sure it adheres here. Oh, it doesn't have to, because that'll open up like that. Just whether or not we do that. If I've got two, I probably will go with a magnet, because I can add the magnet a little off center so they don't, the magnets don't touch. If I have the 2 circle tabs, and they have to be centered because you'll see them, and I don't know, they just might sort of play with each other, so I might just use magnets on this. But when I decorate it, I will make that call. All right, that is the front of page 2. All right, so for the back of page 2, you're going to need a piece of cardstock that is 7 inches by 7 inches. And you'll need a piece that is 6.5 by 8. Let us take the 7 by 7 and grab our scoreboard. And this is going to be a fun little trick. So we're simply going to score this one at 1/2 inch on all 4 sides. So score and rotate, score and rotate, and score. And then I'll go ahead and grab my scissors. Oh, for the 6.5 by 8, go ahead and score that on the long side at 1/2 inch. Let's go ahead and miter the corners. And for the 7 by 7 piece, of course, you'll cut across the X created by your 2 score lines on all 4 corners. I'm going to grab my paper trimmer. Well, we'll fold and burnish on the score lines for the 6.5 by 8 piece. Don't fold yet on that 7 by 7 piece. Okay, so here's my big paper trimmer. I don't think Fiskars makes it anymore, but I love this. So I'm going to line up the corner created by the 2 score lines, top and bottom, and just cut across so you have 2 perfect triangles. And then here, of course, we will fold and burnish on the score lines. Oh, but first let's put in the 6.5 by 8 piece. I'll add glue to the tab. And this is going to go to the left of the page. So line it up top and bottom and with the side. Burnish real well. Okay, now we'll take our triangles I'm folding them. You can't see. Sorry, it's out of the range of the camera, but still just fold on the score lines and burnish real well. One is going to go on the right hand page, and one will go on the left hand page. So one's going to go on that flap we just added to the back of page 2, and the other will go on to page 2. Add glue to the tabs. Line it up with the side and the bottom. And there you've got a corner pocket. It's a nice little addition. It's a pocket, but it just looks visually a little bit different than a pocket going straight across the bottom. We'll go ahead and burnish the glue so it's distributed and we get some good adhesion. And then we'll close it. So there we've got room to put, good size photo mat. I'll end up putting a magnet on the inside right there on the triangle so it matches with the one next to it. And that's all we need to do for the back of page 2. You will need 2 pieces of cardstock for the front of page 3, 4.5 by 6 and a 5 by 6 piece. I already scored on this one, so with the 5-inch side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, and with the other one with the 4.5-inch side at the top, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. We'll go ahead and miter the corners. And fold and burnish on our score lines. And so now I'm going to take the shorter piece, the smaller piece, and adhere that to the very top of page 3 front. So make sure you adhere it to the top of the page, not to the hinge, but the base page. I put it down and then I'll burnish real well to distribute the glue and make sure we have some good adhesion. Once I decorate, you'll see I do have a magnet closure, but I put the magnet in a circular feature that is sort of like a little tab that connects the 2 pages. You'll see in the decorating, or you might remember it from the walkthrough. All right, that's all we're going to do for now. So that is the front of page 3. For the back of page 3, you will need 2 pieces. One is 5 3/4 by 7 3/4, and then one is 8.5 by 11. So we're going to take this one and we're going to score it at 1/2 inch with the 8.5 side at the top. So you could score on the right or the left, but since it's easier for me, I'm going to score on the right hand side, and then I'll rotate once so the 11-inch side is at the top. And we'll score at 1/2 inch and at 6 1/4. So we're going to cut this down. You're going to cut down the short tab. So I'm grabbing my long bladed scissors. So there's the larger section, here's the smaller section. And I'm just going to cut on the score line and take off that 1/2 inch piece. Now we want to cut it at a miter, so I'm going to miter this top tab. I'll go ahead and cut across the X created by the score lines and then miter to the score line in the center, and then go ahead and cut up with the scissors. Now, if you want to, you can use your scoreboard if you want to ensure a straight cut. It's just easier for me to explain by using scissors. So that's the pieces we took off of this. And I'll miter the bottom little tab. We'll fold and burnish the score lines. Now this piece is going to come face down, so just pay attention to the way I folded it. The longer tab we're going to fold towards the back. All right. So this piece, we're going to fold the smaller portion towards the back and burnish on that score line. And then we've got this 5 3/4 by 7 3/4, and we're simply going to adhere that to the tab on the front. Just try to make sure that it is up to the very top of that tab and even with the sides. Then we'll grab the book, and that tab is folded towards the inside. We'll add glue to it and adhere that to the left-hand side of the back of page 3. Burnish real well. Make sure it's straight on the page. Just because it's such a large piece, it sort of wiggles a little bit. So burnish it real well. All right, so now this will open. Let me show you. The top piece will open up. And then it'll open to the side. And then you've got this extra flap. So that gives you a lot of room for photos and just a little more interactiveness. There you go. So that is the back of page 3. For the front of page 4, you'll need 2 pieces. One is 5 by 8 and one is 4.5 by 8. Now I'm using scraps, so if you have different sizes, you can use them. You'll obviously use different sizes when you come to decorate than I do, but it's no big deal. So score both with the short side at the top at 1/2 inch. I'll go ahead and miter on our corners. And fold and burnish on our score lines. Now this is pretty easy. We're going to adhere one to the left-hand side of the page and one to the right-hand side. Oh, I realized I had these pieces at 8.5 instead of 8. So that's why I'm cutting them down. All right, again, we'll add glue and adhere the long one to the left side, the short one to the right, but it could be either or. So glue down and burnish. And adhere one to the right hand side. And burnish. And I like to open it up to make sure I can distribute the glue. All right, and I'll put a magnet on a feature that I add to this page, but that's it for the front of page 4. All right, I have one piece of 8.5 by 11 paper left out of the 25, so I'm going to use this for the back of page 4. I'm going to score on the short sides at 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to cut this in equal sections. So it's going to be 4 pieces that are 5.5 by 4.25. So I'll first cut it at 5.5. And then I'll cut these 2 pieces together at 4.25. So now all 4 pieces have the score line on the short side. I'll go ahead and miter the corners and fold and burnish on the score lines. I'm putting all these 4 together and doing it at once, hoping that I have all the score lines at the right place. And fold and burnish. Now, if you're like me and you use 1 pack of 25 pieces of cardstock, you're at the end of your pile. And I could add more features, but I wanted to make this easy. I was going to put a waterfall in the back, but I wanted everybody to be on the same page with me as far as supplies. So now here I adhere this to the center, and then I realize I really don't want it on the center. So don't adhere it until you see where I put it, because I'm going to have to pull it up in just a second. And even though it the glue is already adhered, it comes up without a problem. Once I add my pattern paper, you don't see it. I could have taken this out, but I thought, you know what? Everyone makes mistakes. So here I am pulling it up gently. And you can see where that paper was. Some of the fibers of the base page came up. But again, it's not a big deal. We're going to cover it with pattern paper. So I'm just going to leave this. So the top piece will go about 1/4 inch from the left top side. The bottom piece will go about 1/4 inch from the bottom right. And then this one piece will go on the side about 1/4 inch from the top right. And I'll be adhering a magnet when I decorate to the bottom right hand corner of that first piece we put on and the top left hand corner of the last piece we put on. So that's it for this. And then I'm not going to do anything with the back inside cover. We're leaving that plain. I'm going to put a photo mat on it when I go decorate the page. So that is it for the back of page 4. Now let's go to making the hidden photo mat. All right, I had said that I was using my last piece of paper. I actually had these 2 pieces saved. So I cut 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11 down 5.5 by 7. I am going to use a tab punch to make tabs for these. Now, if they were a little bigger, I would just simply round the corners, but I have a tab punch in my stash, it looks like that. I'm going to glue it onto each of the pages. One will be up at the top, and then one about 3/4 of an inch down, then 3/4 of an inch from that one on the bottom of the page. So that's what I'm using for tab pull out. You can use any type of tabs that you have in your stash if that's something you want to do. So I'm just gluing these onto the paper, and that's it for the hidden photo mats. Now you'll see in the decorating video that I use whatever scraps of paper I have left to make mats to go in the pockets of the rest of the pages. So just use what you have. In fact, I made some with the blue cardstock that I got. So it's all just a matter of using the scraps that you have and making them work in the pages. I like to have my mats 6.5 by 4.5, so you could put pattern paper on it 4.25 by 6.25, so you can put a 4 by 6 photo on top of it. But again, it's whatever works for you. So if you'd like, you can go to the next video, which I do decorating. Now most of it is really just my decorating process. I don't have step-by-step and measurements, but you can see what I do to decorate the mini album. And besides that, that is what I have for you today. That is the tutorial on how to make the Chaps mini album. I also do have a tutorial on how I made the tunnel feature for the cover. It's a really cool element, but it is quite tedious. So you might want to do that, or you might want to decorate the cover in a different way. But in any case, thank you so much for joining along. All of the supplies are listed in the description box, and they're available from Country Craft Creations. Thank you so much, and have a fabulous day.